12:15 p.m. here in the Russian capital. The Israeli Defense Force is mainly a Jewish military. Arab citizens are not obligated to serve in the IDF, but they can volunteer. And one of them was proud to enlist and bear arms, but then when he most needed support, the discrimination began. Paula Sleer picks up the story.
In Israel, it's not only a rite of passage, it's mandatory. Army service for every citizen, men and women alike, unless you're Arab. Which is why Abdullah's story is remarkable. He is one of the very few Israeli Arabs who chose to enlist.
My entire family is very pro-army. They encouraged me to enroll. My two other brothers are also serving in the army.
For Abdullah, being part of the Israeli Defense Forces was an honor that outweighed ethnic barriers. But he became dismayed at how he was treated.
I feel connected to this country, but the country doesn't care about me. Initially, I felt that I have to give my very best. I gave 100%, and in the end, one incident ruined everything for me.
Abdullah gave 10 years of his life to the IDF. But when news of his heart disease surfaced, he says the army was quick to expel him from its ranks.
The moment I became ill, discrimination started. They started pushing me away and cornering me. They basically told me to go and handle it by myself.
Abdullah believes the army would have treated him differently if he was Jewish. He says for as long as he was healthy, he was accepted. But when he became sick, they remembered he was an Arab. The IDF was quick to sweep Abdullah's case under the carpet. In an email to RT, they said he did not qualify as an IDF handicap and the benefits that came with it. The IDF now refuses any responsibility in the matter, leaving Abdullah with no support and no way to make a living after his military discharge. Michael Hershkovitz is all too familiar with the issue. A veteran of Israel's 1973 Arab-Israeli war, he was sprayed with bullets while trying to pull his comrades from their burning tank. He set up an NGO to fight for the rights of those injured during service.
The IDF does not give medical insurance to its soldiers, and especially not to those in fighter units. So if these soldiers want to sue the IDF after they are wounded, they will have to dig out a pretty penny, tens of thousands of shekels, just like Abdullah did.
Abdullah is a former combat soldier. He says he put his life on the line for his country, but that this is the biggest battle he has ever had to fight.
I can't work with the disease that I have. My only question is, how am I going to survive? I can't fall asleep thinking about how to put food on the table.
Paula Sleer, RT, Tel Aviv.
Europe has failed to rise to the challenge of helping Syrian refugees and is neglecting the crisis. That's according to the Human Rights Commissioner at the Council of Europe. Niels Muizhnieks, there on the screen, is urging one of the world's wealthiest regions to shelter more Syrians and provide for their needs. Now, since the conflict in Syria broke out in 2011, neighboring countries have taken in most of those fleeing the war. Millions have been accepted by the governments of Turkey, Lebanon there, Jordan as well down here. But Europe in all of its entirety has only housed some 210,000 refugees, roughly 6% of the total. A British Muslim activist Raza Nadim says an anti-immigration mindset has taken Europe hostage.
Well, I think part of the issue is that the political climate in Europe, and especially in Britain, is one where there's a lot of anti-immigration feeling, anti-outsider feeling, and really, even though helping refugees, which is such a noble thing, unfortunately in today's climate seen as a bad thing. It's seen bad for politicians. But with only 6% of the immigrants, of refugees being allowed to come in, it's a black mark on the reputation of Europe and Syria. It's our foreign policy that has allowed for extremist groups like ISIS to spawn. It's not about stopping Bashar al-Assad. It's not about stopping ISIS. It's really more about consolidating power, but also stop the anti-refugee immigration narrative which is taking over Europe and is making Europe much more hostile and much more intolerant.
And waiting for you online right now at RT.com. Finish your education at 15, but get married at 9. Advice there from Islamic State's Guide for Women. It was issued by an all-women group working for the Islamist militants, and it's designed to draw in women from all across the Middle East. Details right now at RT.com. Also there, the US Navy presents its new robot designed for fighting fires at sea. Though it's not quite ready, it's neither water or fireproof just yet, but I'm sure it'll get there soon. The details at rt.com. For now, a new trend is becoming ingrained in the American economy. A growing number of people are forgetting about owning stuff, in fact preferring to share their belongings instead, as Marina Portnaya investigates.
Ownership has long been a fundamental principle, a central creed of American culture. For decades, the U.S. would define itself as a country of possessions, a nation superior to the European socialists and Soviet communists who can't buy as many things.
Only 1 out of 7 families in the Soviet Union own automobiles.
Yet, with the help of rapidly evolving technology, Americans now have a choice between owning and sharing, and it appears that citizens are embracing the latter.
How does an unemployed girl with 3 roommates afford the patchwork denim bully Louis Vuitton bag?
It's rented. Bag, borrow, steal. It's like Netflix for purses.
From designer bags and clothes to cars, homes, and bicycles, Americans are increasingly bypassing ownership, replacing conspicuous consumption with collaborative consumption.
I like to think that that we humans are kind of evolving in a sense to think about the implications of our consumerism. And maybe I don't need to own all this stuff. Maybe I could share it. And maybe that frees me up to make different choices because it frees up more of my income to do other things.
But some economists say the shift in American mindset isn't so much of an enlightenment as a necessity.
This is really less about sharing, although that's a byproduct, and more about you can't afford it anymore.
Amid the Great Recession and its low-wage recovery, Americans of all ages have been forced to ask, how many possessions do they really need to own? While the financial crisis created a perfect opportunity to create a sharing economy, many say that a model created in times of desperation may turn out to be a virtue.
It means that the putting down of socialism is itself becoming undone. Socialism, as some of the recent polls show, is becoming an attractive idea to young people precisely because they see themselves in a capitalist system which is not delivering the goods to them and a cooperative alternative that they are more and more drawn to engage with.
A social and economic model repeatedly shunned by U.S. officials for decades, becoming the preferred force in modern-day American life. Marina Portnaya, RT, New York.
An old man haircut as a punishment for misbehaving children. A barber in Atlanta offers to help deal with naughty kids. Let's show you what happened with RT's Anissa Nawi's program In the Now.
And sometimes you need to cut out your kids' naughty habits with some hair-raising tactics. This is what barber Russell Frederick calls the Benjamin Button Special. The haircut is free of charge and is meant to punish naughty kids by making them look like senior citizens. It's all the buzz with parents saying it works. Owner of the barber shop in the U.S. state of Georgia, Russell Frederick, joins us in the Now. Thanks for being with us, Russell. This has become somewhat of a snipping sensation, I understand. What made you come up with this idea?
I had to discipline my son a few months back, and I shaved his head bald, and then I found a picture of an old man and told him if he doesn't get his act together, that this will be the next haircut he gets.
I'm assuming that it worked and well.
Yeah, he never had to get the haircut. So a client came in and she asked for some help with her son that had been misbehaving. So I eventually gave it to him, and that's the picture that everybody sees now.
And how do parents in general react to this tactic? Do some of them think it's too harsh? Do they think it's a good idea? What's been the reaction?
It's been mostly good. I've gotten positive comments from it, but there are a few negative comments that say it's emotional abuse or emotional scarring, and that you shouldn't do that to kids these days.
All right, before we join Erin, Aiden, boom, bust. For now, one photo of the King of Jordan is spreading confusion across social media. King Abdullah vowed to fight Islamic State until his army runs out of fuel and bullets. This in response to the killing of a captured Jordanian pilot. And his PR gurus were quick to illustrate the vow with a photo of the king ready for battle. Twitter, of course, soon caught on, and the picture was spread with claims that Abdullah is leading the attacks on ISIS himself. But the same photo was also used 8 months ago on the palace's Instagram account when Islamic State sent terrorists to the border between Iraq and Jordan back in June. Twitter users are also posting this picture right there of the king flying a helicopter as proof that he's taking care of business personally, although it's actually a still shot from a charity promo video. The King's press office has been trying to stop the rumours saying Abdullah II didn't take part in any aerial attacks, but his macho image is fueling the story. Dubbed by some media the Warrior King, Abdullah is actually a former elite Cobra chopper pilot and was in charge of the country's special forces before taking the throne. All right, well, thank you very much for joining us here on RT International. Up next, as promised, boom bust. Taking a closer look at China's latest attempt to boost its economic growth. It's seen a bit of a slowdown. Here comes Erin Aid.